Is there more Indonesia news? Like, is there an explainer that we can look at for Indonesia or no? Oh yeah, they're using the One Piece flag too,
teguran ya untuk pemerintah.
which is sick. In Indonesia, authorities are divided on how to react to people flying the One Piece flag.
Outside Parliament in Jakarta, Indonesians maintain pressure on their government. They want their grievances addressed by authorities. They've put forward 17 proposals and 8 other issues. Among them a rise in the minimum salary, a halt to mass...
My goats in Indonesia. Yeah, there is mass instability, mass unrest taking place in Indonesia over the past couple of days. From what I understand, especially the youth, but it's a multi-generational struggle, but especially the youth have made a lot of demands. The Indonesian government has responded in a very predictable and very manner. People have been killed. There was the images of like the police armored personnel carrier running over, I think it was like an Uber driver or something. And I mean, I think this is expected, especially if you consider the history of Indonesia and how it got to the point that it got to through American intervention, of course. Vincent Bevins wrote extensively on it, called In the Jakarta Method. Indonesia has a history of taking CIA aid and intelligence to millions of its political dissidents that it declared to be communist and socialist, even if they were like simply student protesters and shit like that. That is how it's been able to reassert its power. And I mean, the country, I think, has improved overall, but there's still many issues.
Layoffs and an overhaul of the financial system.
The biggest reform we need for Parliament is for them to work for the people rather than for the party leaders or the parties themselves. That's what reform really means. No matter who you are, it doesn't matter. As long as you only work for your party, you're not working for the people.
It's normal for the public to be angry because essentially there have been too many violations committed by the state. So many things done by the state, I would say, do not accommodate the people's aspirations. So they end up angry.
Public anger erupted on the 25th of August when the government announced a housing indemnity for members of Parliament, a perk 10 times the country's minimum wage. The protest turned violent after the death in Jakarta on Thursday of a motorcycle taxi driver crushed by a police van. Authorities deployed the army in several cities. The NGO Contrast says 20 people are reported missing. The protests are the largest since President Prabowo Subianto took office less than a year ago. To calm the situation, he's done away with the housing indemnity for parliamentarians while pledging to remain firm in the face of riots.
Protests in Indonesia against alleged government corruption and police brutality are ongoing. The military has been deployed to break up demonstrations. Protesters are angry about wage inequality and the benefits granted to members of parliament. President Prabowo Subianto has promised some allowances will be cut, but the concession has done little to deter the crowds. At least 8 people have been killed in the past week. Jessica Washington is following the latest protests in the Indonesian capital.
I'm in central Jakarta where thousands of motorbike taxi drivers are gathering here to demonstrate against the killing of a fellow motorbike taxi driver, Hasan. The 21-year-old was killed during demonstrations here in Jakarta. He was hit by an armored police vehicle. But today, these thousands of drivers are gathering to demonstrate that not only can they honor their colleague and also call for their various demands about economic equality, but they can do it peacefully. They can do it even by shaking the hands of police officers.
The Biden admin put its weight behind the current president, who's a remnant of the U.S.-backed Suharto dictatorship, not dissimilar from Biden admin's backing of Marcos Jr., son of the dictator of Marcos, or Yoon in Korea. More U.S. meddling made this inevitable. Yeah, It's interesting though, because it's like the Chinese government is also deeply involved with the Indonesian government and has played a formative role in like improving and doing big, bold infrastructure spending in Indonesia. But I think I would say that, I mean, it's just transparent corruption, you know? It's just transparent corruption from political figures in the country and the inevitable mass instability that is born out of that.
And giving them flowers. Yesterday, Prabowo Subianto reiterated that Indonesians do have the right to peacefully protest, but he also said that those who commit any acts of violence during the course of these protests may be guilty of treason or even terrorism. So certainly since those comments from Prabowo Subianto, since we've seen an increased security presence on the streets of Jakarta, including soldiers deployed at many points around the city, we have seen much smaller demonstrations, but there is still a sense that this week of protests will continue. Just last night in Bandung, there were social media videos which showed police firing tear gas around university campuses in Bandung. The UN Human Rights Office also raised concerns about this week of unrest in Indonesia. I'll just read a short segment of what they had to say. They noted that there must be thorough and transparent investigations into all alleged violations of international human rights law, including with respect to the use of force. A few other important points to note: the Commission for Disappeared and Victims of Violence, that's Kontras here in Indonesia, has noted that at least 20 people remain missing since those demonstrations. Most of them were last seen in central Jakarta. Some of them, however, were last seen in East Jakarta or even the north, or even on the outskirts in Depok as well. Also, civil society organizations here in Indonesia raising the alarm over the arrest of a civil society leader here in Jakarta. He was arrested late last night. Jessica Washington, Al Jazeera, Jakarta.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news.
The Epstein releases a nothing burger, nothing new. Scoop. Source of the House Oversight Committee confirmed documents posted by Representative Anna Paulina Luna are the same 33,000 pages of Epstein documents they received, 97% already public and a part of the broader plan to block transparency. Is there more Indonesia news? Like, is there an explainer that we can look at for Indonesia or no? Oh yeah, they're using the One Piece flag too,
teguran ya untuk pemerintah.
which is sick. In Indonesia, authorities are divided on how to react to people flying the One Piece flag.
So we begin with...
Did you just send me the same link in the same video that I just watched? Oh no.
With breaking news out of Indonesia,
That's
anti-government protests have turned violent in the capital, Jakarta, and other major cities for a second night. Police fired tear gas and deployed water cannon to disperse crowds. Hundreds are protesting against a number of cost of living related issues, including the lack of jobs and low wages. But the death of a motorcycle taxi driver who was run over by a police vehicle on Thursday has worsened that anger. Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto has apologized for the excessive use of force by police and is calling for calm. Well, let's speak to Al Jazeera's producer, Siriana Hasibuan, who joins us on the phone from Jakarta. Siriana, it's gone past 8 p.m. local time in Jakarta. Tell us about what's happening now on the streets.
Well, people have been demonstrating in Jakarta the whole day today and also in many other cities in Indonesia. Well, the crowd of mob started together earlier in the day outside police quarters, throwing rocks and shoot fireworks into the headquarters. And then the crowd then started to burn things around the area. It is now raining heavily in Jakarta right now. And then hopefully the situation is calming down a bit. But people are still gathering, so who knows what will happen later on tonight.
Yeah, we are seeing those live pictures from Jakarta. And as you say, it's raining, but people are still out on the streets. Remind us, Siriana, how these demonstrations started.
It started earlier this week when students demonstrating against salary package received by Member of Parliament, which is more than 10 times of minimum wage in Indonesia. People are angry. They feel that the government and the parliament do not care about their situation. Their living cost is very high right now. jobs hard to find. And then they feel like the rich keep getting richer, but then there's no improvement in.
It is not lost on me that the same issues persist everywhere around the world, with some exceptions, but mostly everywhere around the world.
Their daily life. And then
especially a major issue in places where we have intervened and interfered in the sovereignty of these governments. Interesting.
The demonstration getting bigger, then clash happened between the protesters and.
I mean, it's happening in fucking America too, to a lesser degree, but it's.
And then after that, later that night, the motorbike driver got killed by police car, and then the situation even more heated after that.
Okay, Ciarina, thank you so much for the update. That's Al Jazeera's producer, Ciarina.
Corruption is rampant? No, it's not. It's not just corruption. They're fucking frustrated by the cost of living. The corruption is the way that they see it. The corruption is also making politicians refuse to address it.
Ciarina Hasibuan on the line there from Jakarta with the latest on those demonstrations. These are the latest pictures we're getting from the Indonesian capital. Police and protesters on the streets clashing for a second night over the death of a motorcycle driver. But that wasn't the initial anger that the issue that angered protesters, as we've heard from our correspondent. Let's discuss this further now with Wirya Dewina, who's the Deputy Director of Amnesty International Indonesia, joining us from Jakarta. Thank you so much for being with us. As our producer noted there, the capital of Indonesia has seen a series of demonstrations this week with the protests stemming from a number of issues. What are Indonesians most angry about right now?
Well, I think the death of the motorcyclist last night, was something that really triggers a lot of emotional outbursts, because this is the final straw that breaks the camel back. Although these demonstrations has been running quite heatedly in the past couple of days, what we need to understand, this is not even the first demonstration, big large-scale demonstration that's happening this year, or not even the demonstrations or protests that have faced excessive and unnecessary use of force by police forces. There was another demonstrations in August, another one in May, just this year alone. And last year there was some massive demonstrations nearing the end of the year. And all of those demonstrations faced excessive and unnecessary use of force by the police forces. Tear gas was used improperly, water cannons, beatings. So I think when people are seeing with their own eyes a motorcyclist being trampled by a police vehicle, that is just the trigger.
Right. As you say, this is not the first demonstration, but the pictures that we're seeing are quite spectacular, of fires burning in Jakarta. How do these protests fit into Indonesia's longer history of public mobilization over inequality and governance issues? What feels different this time?
Well, what the government needs to understand is that they have been continued to gaslit people's opinion in the past several years. It is only makes sense that the people are trying to shout their voice more loudly. What we are looking in the past several weeks is a blatant show of the parliament, the government, dancing around as the people are struggling. Economics are difficult in Indonesia at the moment. Jobs are difficult for Indonesians at the moment. And we know that in Indonesia, one of the biggest pain points for a lot of Indonesians are those jobs, livelihoods. So what's happening now is something that should have been expected if only the government would listen, if only the parliament would listen to the people.
Right. The unrest is no doubt a key test for President Prabowo Subianto. He's already apologized for the excessive use of force that led to the motorcycle driver's death. But what else does he need to do now to quell this anger? What does he need to do for Indonesians to accept, to trust once again their government?
Well, for starter, what you said as the president's apology was actually a non-apology. The president indeed conveyed his condolences. He did express his regret, but he did not apologize to the people. He did not apologize for the excessive use of force. And he did not provide clear action points of what the government will do to solve this big issue. And this is such a big issue that Amnesty International have been documenting multiple excessive use of police force throughout the years.
Wait, what? The reaction from the government about lack of jobs is to ask us to find jobs abroad? That's insane, dude. That's fucking insane. But yeah, this kind of instability is expected. If left unaddressed, economic issues are going to piss people off. That's how it's been historically. And this kind of like militant repression only makes the situation worse. Same thing that happened in California. Same thing that happens all around the world. The reason why these protests get more violent, or when it chatters, I see them asking like, why can't Americans do this? Like, why is America not doing this? And there's a reason. Because American material conditions are nowhere near as bad as it is in a country like Indonesia. So when the starting point is far worse overall, because like the Indonesian middle class, which the Indonesian middle class individual is far worse off than the American middle class individual is. The Indonesian poor is worse off overall than the American poor. And therefore, people have less to lose and are willing to and get more understandably resentful and understandably angry, especially when they see their government refusing to fucking do anything. How come Ilhan Omar getting so rich? This is such a funny question to ask someone like myself as a 6-month subscriber, because I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. And also, why would I know? Like do I at any given point did I try to tell you that I'm like, or did I tell you at all that I'm Ilhan Omar's accountant, or like how did you arrive at this? Libs of TikTok tweet claiming she's a multimillionaire.
From 2020 to 2022, 2024, 2025, years after years after years, when people are protesting peacefully, police will come with batons, with tear gas, with water cannons. And this requires a clear, concrete actions that reform the police body structurally. Apology.
Is Chatter aware that you're rich? Maybe that's why he thought I would know. I assume in his mind, he's like, all rich people know each other. You know what I mean?
He's alone, not enough.
Hold on.
Regrets alone is not enough. Accountability should go all the way to the top. And that is where the president should have started.
Indonesia, when you look at Indonesia from the outside, it's often seen as a moral democracy in Southeast Asia. Do you think these protests and the state's or government's response challenge that perception today? And how might this unrest actually affect Indonesia's reputation internationally and in the region, especially as it positions itself as a regional leader in ASEAN?
Well, the government should definitely be worried about what they have been failing to do to uphold that image of democracy. They have been curbing freedom of press. They have been curbing freedom of expression and freedom of speech. They have been criminalizing criticisms and dissents, online and offline. So I think the government should be very worried about their images abroad in terms of democracy and human rights. But one thing that I am...
Speaking of One Piece, this was my manager's birthday gift to me. He just dropped it off alongside a copy of Seth Harp's The Fort Bragg Cartel, which also Seth sent over. Penguin Random House. Dear Hasan, Seth Harp has asked me to send along a copy of his New York Times bestselling new book, The Fort Bragg Cartel, Drug Trafficking, Murder in the Special Forces. We are both huge fans of your show, and we're grateful for your interest in Seth's work. I hope you'll have a chance to read and perhaps have him on the show soon. Thank you for helping us spread the word about this important, riveting book. Yeah, I'm going to have Seth on soon. I've been talking to him. Apparently, they're going to make a HBO show of the book as well. I was trying to buy that book over the weekend, but it was on a waiting list. Damn.
Very appreciative of Indonesians, even in these times when the governments are attacking its own people. We are looking at people still continuing to express their criticisms in the street, online. People are still organizing. People are still trying to make things better for their fellow Indonesians. So I think one thing is like what Charles Dickens said, it is the best of time, this is the worst of time. The government has been performing very terribly, but the people are there. The people are there protesting peacefully. The people are there expressing their criticisms. And like we always did, I think Indonesians will still stay true to the traditions of democracy.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Also, I have found a visual